Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
Still recovering. We didn't record last week. I actually went out to the Bay Area, spent some time with my homie, Mad Props, and by the end of it, though, you got really sick.
Yeah. Apparently, according to the doctor, I got food poisoning on the evening before actually, the evening before the last day that you were here.
And unfortunately, we had to cancel some plans, so that was unfortunate. Since we last recorded, I was keeping up the 80s as I usually do. I actually saw two different concerts. I saw Bryan Adams with Joan Jett. Amazing. I'd never seen Bryan Adams before, so that was quite a treat. He held up really, really well. Great concert. And then a couple days ago, I saw 38 Special at the Ventura County Fair. What a deal, right? $15 to get into the fair, and the concert was included.
Yeah, that doesn't suck at all, man. That's awesome.
No, and they said you'd sit where the heck you want. So I took they had a long area in the front for people to stand, but I'm old, so I sat in the third row and had great views. And yeah, $15. It was amazing. The next day, Tesla performed. I was actually thinking about going to that, but went to the Giants Angels game instead. Probably should have gone to see Tesla. Anyway, nice shirt, by the way.
Thank you. Yes, a good friend of mine got this for me. Sort of popped up in my mail yesterday. Jim Cotta. I think we've talked about this in other episodes. The horrible martial arts slash gymnastics movie that everybody must see. And yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah, it's funny because after they won the gold medal, they actually decided, let's go ahead and make movies with these guys. Jim Cotta was one. The other one I remember was American Anthem, I think it was called, with Mitch Gaylord. And I actually enjoyed that movie a little bit. Better than Jim Cotta, but Jim Cotta is fantastic. If you want really bad cinema, you can't go wrong with Jim Cotta. So you know what? We have to go out one day. You need to wear that shirt all day. I want to see if one person brings that shirt up. I've got to see if anybody ever calls you out on that. I want to see it happen. Anyway, getting back to the purpose we're here, we actually are going to talk today about forgotten 80s TV shows. There are a lot of TV shows in the 80s that really, touched the nerve with people and are still, revered today. Think of Miami Vice, The Golden Girls, Baywatch, Dynasty, Cheers, TV shows like that. We're going to talk about some of the other ones that have slipped through the cracks for whatever reason, aren't as popular or aren't very well known. Hopefully, we can introduce you to a few of them. So, Lou, why don't you take us, get this going and take it off?
Awesome. Before I do that, mad props to you on the subject. When I first heard it, it's like, okay, cool, this should be, fun to do. But after I did some research, it's like, oh man, I forgot about this one. Oh wow, I forgot about this one completely. It was a lot of fun, man. So I've got quite a few of them to talk about. Uh,
Well,
the Go ahead.
no, please do.
So the first one, I again was something that had completely just left my brain. I always felt that it had one of the most amazing marketing approaches where it would show a commercial, just a big V on the screen, and then a date. And you're just sitting there anticipating, well, what's going to come up? What's going to come up? So it actually turned out to be something that started off as a two-part miniseries, then a three-part miniseries, then a TV series from I think 85 to 86. So the V stood for visitor, and it was about aliens that were coming over to sort of share their technology with us in exchange for allowing us to give them some resources. And it turns out that there's really an ugly undercurrent there that they really want to just use humans for feed and steal all of our water. So it was a pretty neat series. I actually remember enjoying it quite a bit. Had completely forgotten about it.
I I don't think I ever watched it. I do remember the show. Didn't they remake it a while back? I don't know why. I feel like they did as a TV
I,
show.
I want to say that they did because I saw some during my research some mention like in 2009 that there was some remake of some sort that they did. So it's very possible.
Very cool. A great pick. I'll have to check it out. I've never seen it. My first pick, I started doing this research and I noticed that everything was really driven by my teenage self. So most of it was comedy, and most of it had a very attractive young woman in the show. And that was what drew me to these shows. And sometimes I'd stick around for it, sometimes I wouldn't. First one I stuck around for, Too Close for Comfort. You can't go wrong with, Ted Knight, right? He was an amazing actor, great in Mary Tyler Moore. In this show, he played the father of two, well, late teens, early 20s girls, one of which was played by Lydia Cornell, who I had a huge crush on back then. I'm surprised they did 6 seasons of this. I didn't even realize they had done that many. Um, you gotta watch the opening episodes. Just the beginning will have you hooked. He's sitting there with he's in bed with his wife. The alarm clock goes off. He can't stop the alarm clock. Finally, he throws it out the window. And he's like, somebody says, you know what time it is? He gets the binoculars. He's looking out the window to tell the time. Really good show. He was also known for, I guess, in the first episode, he wore like a Michigan sweatshirt. So all these colleges started sending in their, sweatshirts and things. So it became known he would always try to wear as many different sweatshirts from colleges that were sent in as he could.
Oh, how funny.
Um, Really good show, and the physicality that he did. Um, he had the two daughters were living with him. He's renting out, in addition to being a comic book artist for Cosmic Cow. He and his wife are renting out the apartments, and they find out that one of the neighbors who passed and whose now apartment needs to be rent out was a drag queen. It was very interesting to kind of see that subject talked about in the 80s. They handled it very well, and I thought it was very respectful, kind of interesting. But because the furniture was, to this person's liking, like Ted Knight goes to sit on it and he flops over the things like 80 million times, and it's hysterical. Lydia Cornell, eye candy for days. And yeah, there's an episode where she's wearing a very interesting wench outfit early on in the show. Big props, big props. So that's my first choice. Too Close for Comfort. Um, I will say, I know a lot of people liked him. They brought in um, Jim J. Bullock, I think his name was. He was supposed to be a character for like one episode, and everyone liked him, so they made him a reoccurring character. Kind of wish they hadn't. I think he kind of detracted from the series and the focus of the series. He was more the comedic element of it. But I think they had enough comedy there, and I regret that he was brought in. So just a little aside on that.
Ah, bummer. Yeah, I was never a huge fan of the show. For whatever reason, Ted Knight never really resonated with me. So I, didn't watch it too much. But good pick.
Uh,
What's that?
it was supposed to be in San Francisco too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. Good pick regardless, man.
Thank you.
So my next one is one that some people will probably remember. It was about an aspiring photographer, Larry Appleton, and his roommate, who was actually a cousin of his that moved to the United States from the island of Mypos. His name was Balki. And there was a sitcom called Perfect Strangers. It aired from 86 to 93. And Balki, who was acted by Bronson Pinot, was probably the real star of the show. He was the real funny element of it, and the series really revolved around just life situations that the two would get into and the cultural differences. Where Balky's trying to learn to be American, and it was cute. It was cute, and I definitely think that Bronson did a really good job of playing Balky.
Yeah, yeah. Wasn't it like Balky Bartokomous or something like that? I think his name was. Why I
Yeah, that's
remember
what
that,
it
I
was.
don't know. Wasn't on my list, but I do remember watching that show quite a bit, and I've seen photos that apparently they're still friends to this day. So that's kind of
That's
cool.
awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that
awesome.
I haven't seen it in years, but a good show, good call. My next one, I kind of remembered it more for the the theme song, but it's a show debuted in 1980, ran until 1989, but only had 6 seasons, and I'll explain why. It's called "It's a Living," and the focus was on a wait staff, apparently at a restaurant inside the Bonaventure Hotel in Los Angeles. And it's funny because I was talking about this episode before we recorded with my wife, and she was a resident of LA or LA adjacent. And she's like, "Yeah, I used to watch that show, see the Bonaventure, and think, God, it would be so glamorous to be out there and work around there." And she goes, "Now I look at it, and go, yeah, not so much." But great show, focused on the women there and the dynamics of their relationships, their lives, everything else. Thought it was really good. I guess it ran a couple seasons, and then they brought it back after it was gone for a couple of years, and they brought it back for syndication. So that's why, even though it ran from 1980 to 1989, they only had 6 seasons of it. And Ann Jillian, who was really the star of the show, appeared sporadically when it went to syndication due to some health issues. But when it went to syndication, one of the additions was Crystal Bernard, who later was prominent in the show Wings. So good show. I love the obnoxious piano player whose name completely escapes me right now. I actually, if you go to, if you have a Roku device, or I'm sure it's on any other smart TV, look up Tubi, or I think it's Tubi, and they have a lot of episodes of these shows that we're talking about, and they have "It's a Living" on there. So go check it out. It's a good time.
That's a really good pick, man. I had completely forgotten about that one. They sort of walked around in almost like Vegas-esque attire, right?
Correct. That's probably also what
Yeah.
drew my attention.
So yeah, I'd forgotten about that one completely, especially the obnoxious piano player. That's a really good one.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, the next one I'm going to go with was one that just happened to pop into my head. It wasn't something that I stumbled across on research. Just for whatever reason, I thought about this series I hadn't thought about in a long time. And I thought, did that happen in the 80s? Looked it up and it did. So it was a series that ran from 85 to 87, and it was called Stingray. And it revolved around this guy named Ray. The actor was Nick Manusco, and I'm sorry, Mancuso, Nick Mancuso. And basically, the premise was that he was this sort of dark figure that drove this 65 Corvette Stingray, and he devoted his life to basically helping others. And the way he would do it was that he would help someone, but he would say, I'm going to help you, but you have to promise me to grant me a promise sometime in the future in return. And so what he would do is he would help the person, and then the next person he would help, he'd draw on favors that people had promised him to help that other person, and that's how it kept going. I couldn't watch the episode too much because they kept trashing all these classic cars, man. The 65 Mustangs, they just trashed tons of them, and it just broke my heart every time I saw that because that was an amazing car, one of my favorite cars. But anyway, series that I'm sure that a lot of people don't remember, maybe have never even heard of, but that one popped into my head as I was doing research.
Wow. Obviously, see the connection for you. I don't even remember hearing about that show. That is so crazy. Did they explain? Yeah, was he rich? What? How did he have this stingray? Do we know?
We don't, and there's a lot of. I mean, they don't really know if the guy went by Ray because of the Stingray. He was sort of really mysterious. Didn't really say how he was able to keep doing this, without having a full-time job. So a lot of holes there that you have questions on. But yeah, no, they don't give any of that information.
So if you're a hardcore car enthusiast, don't watch it. It'll make you cry.
It made me cry.
I'm gonna say, I'm not a huge fan of CGI, but those are the times where CGI just seems so much better when they're killing these
Yeah.
beautiful cars for the purpose of a 3-minute scene out of a show that we don't even remember. Um, I've mentioned this one before. People might not have seen this episode, so I'm bringing it back. Yes, I'm gonna shove it down your throats until everybody watches this show because it's fantastic. It only lasted for one season, and I think it was in 1981. It's Your Move. Jason Bateman, David Garrison, priest, married with children, and Karen Kay. By the way, if you've never seen My Tutor, check out Karen Kay and My Tutor. I feel like I became Mr. Skin in this episode. Like, I don't know what's going on. Um, but yeah, it was such a great show. Jason Bateman was very young in this show, and the premise is him and his sister are being raised by a single mother, Karen Kay, and David Garrison's character moves in. I keep wanting to call him Steve Rhodes now, but he moves into the building, the apartment complex, and he's trying to hit on Jason Bateman's mother. And of course, Jason Bateman, being the protective son's not having it. It's a great show. Jason Bateman is such an a-hole in it. You can kind of see where, like Bad Words and movies like that he's been in, where he kind of got his start as such a young kid. He's fantastic in it. There is a two-part episode where him and his buddy Eli um, decided, somehow lost the money to hire a school band for the prom. So they decide they're going to create the dregs of humanity using skeletons uh, from the science labs, and it becomes a phenomenon. They become a phenomenon like this overnight. Oh my God, who are the dregs of humanity? And it's hysterical. Very very well done. Great show. The play between Jason Bateman and David Garrison is first rate. The kid that plays Eli was fantastic, and I don't know too much about him. I guess he did a couple things in the 80s and went into, left acting and sadly just passed away a couple of years ago. But yeah, great, great show. And Karen Kay, My Tutor. Yeah.
I remember seeing commercials from My Tutor. I don't actually remember ever seeing the movie, but I do remember being intrigued by it. Good pick, man. I
Intrigued.
mean,
Good word. Good word. Intrigued.
definitely a good pick, man. I remember the Dregs of Humanity episode, and yeah, yeah,
For the
definitely a
drag.
good, definitely, worthwhile show. It's unfortunate they only had one season.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you can find it on Tubi or some of these, but I have found episodes and watched them on YouTube. It still holds up. It's still so much fun, and like I said, young Jason Bateman, even back then, he was fantastic. So
Very cool. The next one I'm going to go with, I really don't have a lot of memories about. I sort of stumbled upon it, and when doing my research, and I was like, I sort of remember this one. I had to call it out because it is so incredibly 80s. It ran from 83 to 84, and it was called Automan, and it was totally influenced by Tron. I mean, that's absolutely evident. Had the character Walter Neubicker, who was played by Desi Arnaz Jr., who was supposed to be this cop that was also a computer programmer, and he created this program that included a hologram. Acted by Chuck Wagner, that was the Tron character, and both of the characters that actually sort of merge and become one when they went out and fought crime. Really cheesy. Again, super influenced by Tron. It's absolutely obvious, but incredibly 80s. So I had to bring that one up.
I don't remember that one either. So that's a good one. I can see why it lasted one season. The premise sounds really stupid, but what do I know? I go see giant shark movies, so probably up my alley. Um, All right, I'm gonna go with this next show. Ran from 1981 to 1987. And the show is Give Me a Break,
Nice.
with Nell Carter. Um, the premise is it's kind of strange because early on, it seems like she was hired by this family. The father is a chief of police. I forgot the agency. It's like some state, some area of California, fictional area of California, and he's a chief of police. He's recently widowed and he's raising three young daughters. Probably started watching because the oldest daughter was Carrie Michelson. Also loved her. They're all blondes. I don't know. That must have been the '80s thing. Um, but and originally, it's like Nell Carter is supposed to be there as an employee, and I guess even in the '80s there was backlash about that. Like, oh, here you're hiring a black woman to raise your family, and that's inappropriate. So I guess in season three, to kind of quell all of that, and they never really went into it. I guess they did a flashback where the mother, before she died, was friends with Nell Carter's character and said, "Hey, I need you to help raise my daughters. My husband's not going to be able to do it alone." She made the promise to help her, um, and so there he goes. Real interesting, apparently behind the scenes stuff is apparently Nell Carter had a huge drug addiction, very
Wow, I didn't know that.
heavily into cocaine. Um, so the show kind of changed tones a little bit. Um, and then the father, who was the chief of police, he died right a little bit before the end of, I want to say season four or season five. So he died, and they had already filmed for that season on a cliffhanger, but then they had to kind of change it all up and start the show over. And then once that happened, they kind of took and they figured, okay, the father's not here. The focus can't be on these girls without the father. They brought in, I guess, Joey Lawrence, and they kind of moved the show to that and fired most of the girls, so they even had a bit of a return. But real interesting. And the father sadly died. He was 64. Mel Carter actually died at 54. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty young. Um, but some of the things I thought were interesting is some of the guest stars that they had on there. Yes, they had Andy Gibb was a guest star, and he dated Carrie Michelson for a little bit after that. Sammy Davis Jr. was a guest star. And in season three, this unknown actress, well, wasn't even really an actress from what I know of, was actually on the show for an episode. And it was a woman named Whitney Houston.
Wow.
Yeah. So just interesting stuff. It sounds like there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Real interesting. Carrie Michelson, I actually, she's also in a really kind of dumb parody of Friday the 13th called Saturday the 14th. Yes, I went and saw that too. But it's actually a funny show. Some of the stuff I watched it, I'm like, oh my gosh! Like it's early on, he comes home as the chief of police, and he's upset because one of his police officers came out as as gay, and he's like, oh, what's next? A gay man on the police force, and I was like, ooh, that didn't age real well, and surprised it was even good then. But so some of it's a little iffy, but overall, I thought it was good. And then there's a scene too where his daughter, his oldest daughter, says something. He slaps her right across the face. I'm like, damn, that won't be shown today. And this is supposed to be the guy you're supposed to, care about. But it was real interesting. I watched most of the first season to kind of, prepare for this. And it's very strange to kind of watch it like this, comedy, right? It's supposed to be fun and upbeat. And it really revolves around how this family is getting over their deceased mother or wife or friend, whatever. And it was like odd premise to kind of make a comedy about. But so anyway, but it's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, some of it ages kind of poorly, but I thought Nell Carter is great in it. I remember watching it for the most part of its entire run in the '80s.
That's a really good one. I remember watching that quite a bit and enjoying it as well. Had no idea about her drug addiction. That's very, very interesting because, she always played this super upbeat, sort of straight-laced woman. And she could
Now we
really,
know why she was upbeat.
indeed, huh?
Wow.
Um, and she could really sing, man. I remember that I was like shocked the first time I saw that. And for some reason, I can't remember if my memory's accurate or not. But I want to say that when the father died, that she sang "Amazing Grace" at like his funeral in the episode. I'll have to go back and see if that my memory is accurate. But that was the only time I remember them actually bringing her singing abilities into the show. Really, really good pick, John.
Yeah, from what I read, it sounds like she really hated the producers on, the first season. So the second season they changed producers, and because of that, they did focus more on her singing. And oh God, Thelma Hopkins, who was also on one of our favorites, Bosom Buddies, was on the show in later seasons, and so I think they performed together as well.
Nice, nice. I think this is my last one.
It is.
I've got several here. I'm gonna go with a story that went from 82 to 85, and a very popular actor, actually, very famous actor, led this one off. It's one that is sort of maybe near and dear to your heart because it falls within what you used to do for a living. The series was called T.J. Hooker, and the actor I'm talking about, of course, is William Shatner, who played a police sergeant in some obscure city in California. I don't think they actually ever say which one it is. His partner had been killed during a bank robbery, so because of this, he went from being a plain-clothes officer back to a uniformed officer to try and sort of make things right in his head. Had actors like Adrian Zmed playing Vince Romano, and sort of a little bit later on in the episodes, they introduce a character called Stacy Sheridan, who was, of course, Heather Locklear. So, and then they had towards the end a familiar face, James Darren, who played Jim Corrigan, also sort of showing his face so regularly. I watched it a few times. It was sort of neat to watch William Shatner in a different role other than Captain Kirk. I haven't gone back to watch it. I have a feeling that it'll be one that probably didn't age well. Just like if you went to watch The Fall Guy, I don't think that one would age well. It has aged well either. But I'll probably still go and by and check it out. It's been many, many years.
Why did you bring up the Fall Guy?
I just felt that there were sort of the same mold, right? You've got this character that is well known for I'm sorry, you got this actor that's well known for playing one character. So William Shatner doing Captain Kirk, and you've got Lee Majors that used to play Steve Austin, of course, and then they had all these other younger characters revolving around that. So it's sort of like a carbon copy of one or the other.
And they each had a super hot Heather.
They did. That's actually brand new Heathers. So yeah.
So which Heather did you prefer, Heather Thomas or Heather Locklear?
Locklear.
Really? I think I lean towards that, but Heather, I think I had the poster of Heather Thomas in the bikini, so
Yeah, my friend Alex used to have that posted up in his room.
good call. So this one, it's kind of a cheat, but I think it's appropriate, and I'll explain why. And it's the show is the facts of life, and everybody knows. Would have helped if I wrote some of this stuff down. Everybody knows, the characters, right? You had Joe, you had Blair, you had Tootie, you had Natalie, you had Mrs. Garrett, but nobody remembers the first season. The first season had a bunch more girls, and Joe wasn't part of it. They had Molly, Sue Ann, they had Cindy, and I that was a show that I really enjoyed. And once they changed it, I never enjoyed it as much. Um, By the way, one of the girls was played by this actress named Molly Ringwald. I wonder whatever happened to her in the 80s, huh? Geez. Apparently getting fired from Facts of Life just destroyed her career.
Wow, she got
Um,
fired.
she got fired.
Wow.
The original season ran from 79 to 80, so yes, it counts. Um, and then for whatever reason, it might have been ratings, it might have been budget, it might have been a combination. They fired three of the girls, and they made it instead of more of a boarding, school. They switched the focus to a much smaller group. But even back then, like I think one of the girls, I forgot which one, wasn't one of the main girls that you would think of, but actually did drugs. So they always had those kind of episodes where they did these, real life things. I remember, they talked about different things on the show. But again, Facts of Life, yes, iconic. I get it. But that first season was really, really something special in my book. I haven't rewatched it, but yeah, I have to say, I wish they had never fired those girls and from the original show. I think it was a great show and they were on the right track and it would have found its audience. But so obscure, Facts of Life is known, but nobody remembers that first season. Damn it. Give Molly Ringwald her due.
That's really good. I don't remember the first season either. I remember the characters that you were calling out, the 2D and Blair and Joe. I remember them really, really well. Joe was always like the sort of rebel. Uh,
Tomboy, yeah.
yeah, but I don't remember, that first season where they had, different girls. I'll have to go back. That's neat, especially Molly Ringwald. What a trip.
Well, what's funny is Tootie was supposed to be a 12-year-old and she was 10 at the time, Kim Fields. So they always had her in roller skates to make her look taller. And they never brought it up again. And this was a spinoff, of course. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a spinoff from Different Strokes. Mrs. Garrett left from Different Strokes to start Facts of Life.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Charlotte Ray, yeah. So it was a spinoff. And I didn't know this until I started doing some research. Originally, um, oh God, Dana Plato's character from Different Strokes was supposed to go over too. They never did. I think in the first episode they allude to it and it's never brought up again. So I thought
Huh.
that was kind of interesting. So Dana Plato and Charlotte Ray were supposed to go from Different Strokes to Facts of Life. They never went ahead and did that with Dana Plato's character. And I think poor Molly Ringwald, she could have been so successful. The sad thing is the first girl, I think her name was Felice Schepter or something like that. Um, she was the first girl hired, and the first girl fired when they decided to do the second season. So I have to bring that up. Buddy of mine, Ryan, was actually later on in the cast of Facts of Life. So shout out to Ryan. He'll never see this, but but yeah, that first season was really special to me. I remember when I came back for the second season, I'm like, where are all the girls? Where's Molly Ringwald? So it shook me to my core.
Young impressionable John.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I'll have to go back and check. I don't remember that first episode at all. At all. Or I'm sorry, that first season rather.
Yeah, go back, check it out. Again, I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but I just remember being so disappointed that the tone had changed so much and they had such a smaller cast. But what are you gonna do? All right. Well,
Nothing.
nothing. You kept teasing. I thought you were gonna talk about one, but you didn't. So maybe we'll have to do a second episode of this, maybe later on. But hate to end on kind of a downer, but I feel like obligated to bring this up. There is a young lady that watched these episodes, and you and I both went to school with her. Her name was Michelle. You just informed me recently that she sadly lost her life to cancer, buck cancer. And it's really sad. Hopefully, she used to comment about the show and seemed to enjoy it. So hopefully, this brought her some sort of joy. But that's a tough loss. It's just a reminder that nothing is guaranteed in this life. There's no guarantee of tomorrow. Make the best of your life each and every day. Don't always be putting things off. Oh, down the line I'll do this. Down the line, that day may never come. Look at what's going on in Maui right now. How many people are like, oh, I can't wait to visit Maui. Now look what they're dealing with. So it's a sad reflection of things, but it's a good reminder. Live the best life you can on a daily basis. Tell the people that you love them each and every day. Don't go to bed angry. Don't hold these stupid grudges. Life's way too short. And we hope, we know she's in a better place, no longer suffering. And hopefully she gets to continue to watch these episodes wherever she is. Do you think they'll let us into these episodes into heaven?
One can hope, but I don't know. I'm really glad that you brought that up, though, John. Yeah, Michelle Bianchi Schneider. Um, super bubbly, personality. Always had a positive thing to say. So I'm really, really happy you brought that up. Yeah, may she be at peace. And yeah, she had it sounds like a very quick battle with cancer, and just way too young, way too young.
Absolutely. Well, again, apologize for leaving this off on such a somber note. But sometimes those reminders are good reminders. Be good to one another. Lou, anything you want to add?
No, I think I'm good, man.
All right, take us out, brother.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys.